Alright guys, so it's been a little while since my last rare bloodline tier list, and I'm going to be doing another one ranking every rare bloodline from worst to best. By the way, if we hit 275,000 subscribers before the end of this month, I am going to be dyeing my hair and my beard white for Christmas. I will become Santa J. So if you want to see that, hit that like button, subscribe. Alright, so the first tier in the rare bloodline tier list is going to be the bad tier, starting out with Bruce Kenichi himself, Mr. Bruce Kaneki, the big bad boy dragon. So when it comes to Bruce Kenichi, the actual bloodline is a very weird to use bloodline because it is a taijutsu bloodline that is based on combo extenders. Now, while that is actually not that bad in of itself, and the actual abilities are just, they're just kind of like very mid abilities, in a burst combo meta, having moves that do a little amount of damage but combo extend are honestly just not what you want, and it makes it really terrible in this meta specifically. The only move I can even recommend using is the third one, and even then it does like no damage, so you're probably not going to be using it that much. Now the next bad one is going to be Ryuji Kaneki himself. It's going to be Ryuji Kenichi, the other Kenichi bloodline. Ever since the second life was nerfed, which it did need to get nerfed, this bloodline has honestly been really terrible in general. I do think that, they probably should have buffed the moves to account for the mode being nerfed, because while the mode needed the fattest nerf in the world, the actual moves remained nerfed. So the bloodline honestly just has nothing going for it now, and I wouldn't mind the actual moves of it being nerfed because it is quite bad. I mean, buffed, not nerfed. Now, last but not least, in the bad tier is going to be Ghost Karashi. You guys have seen me talk about how bad Ghost Karashi is. There are some people who still think Ghost Karashi is good. I don't really understand it, if I'm going to be honest. The actual Ghost Karashi moves, all of them are extremely predictable. The third move doesn't even give you iframe, so you can be attacked during it. The second move is a 3 hand sign attack. I'm pretty sure they were going to add iframes to it, but they were never added. And this move is just like asking to, be destroyed, get your butthole destroyed. And then the first move is quite possibly the worst auto dodge in the entire game. You're a motorcycle, it's a melee encounter auto dodge, and it barely stuns them. Alright, so the next tier is going to be the below average tier, starting off with Naramaki. Now, Naramaki is going to be only below average and not bad, just because of the second mode being a pretty good mode. You get pretty good stats from it. The actual abilities are honestly pretty good in general, and I do think that this is very borderline being average, but the moves definitely hold it back. Each of them have their own downsides. While I do not think the moves are inherently bad, I just think that there's just better moves in the game right now, and more people will probably come back to Naramaki if, some of the other bloodlines probably get nerfed. Now, next is going to be Boramaki. Now, Boramaki's second move was nerfed, which was one of the best things about Boramaki. The third mode is still really good for Boramaki. Unfortunately, I do not own it, so I can't show you it, but it does have pretty big M1 damage to it and has pretty okay abilities. Now, the second ability, as you guys can see, the ragdoll time on the actual move was decreased by quite a lot, which is the reason why it's not as good as it used to be, but it's still a pretty good ability, hence why this is going to be in below average. Now, Satori Rengoku is probably the pinnacle of below average here. The actual moves are very fun to use, in my opinion. I think it's a very fun bloodline to use. Now, the mode is honestly pretty trash. It's a pretty bad mode, but the actual abilities are really fun other than the third move. I mean, you get a second move which summons clones. Used to be a lot better, but it isn't anymore because the clones don't last as long anymore. And then you get an absolutely massive damage first ability. Now, you actually have to aim it correctly. If you guys do not aim it, directly in the middle of it, they will not take that much damage, but it can do upwards of 120k damage. Now, up next in the below average tier is going to be Ryan Gaiden. Now, Ryan Gaiden, unfortunately, is not really that great of a bloodline anymore, but it definitely is one of the most fun bloodlines in the game, which is honestly part of the reason why I think it's such a shame that it's so bad now. The actual mode is honestly pretty good. I mean, like, it has a point and click ability that does a lot of damage to someone. It's a pretty fun ability. They did slightly reduce the end lag on the first move, so there's that, I guess. That's whatever. But in the second move did have, I just what the heck? You can lift people's bodies into the air? That's kind of hilarious, but that move honestly was nerfed, and the third move is very counterable. Pretty much if they use any counter on you at all, you would get absolutely trashed using this move. Now, Sriracha Akuma, obviously, guys, the only good thing about Sriracha is the final mode for PvE content and the actual counter. The counter is probably the only good thing about Sriracha. I do actually like using the counter myself because it's a very easy to use counter, but that's kind of all it has going for it. Much like Sriracha, Jin Shiki here really has his counter going for it as well. I do think the counter is better than Sriracha's, but I definitely think the fact that this move completely cancels if they have any iframe going on whatsoever definitely makes the move a lot worse. And then last but not least in the below average tier is unfortunately going to be Rune Kanchu that got mode nerfed. The only good thing of Rune Kanchu, when it was already kind of bad, got nerfed. Yeah, the mode drain of the mode was increased to 35 when there's better modes that drain less. So it's kind of ridiculous. Rune Kachu mode is still the best thing about it. It's still a really fun to use, you know, combo, you know, it's a very fun to use combo mode that does a lot of damage if you actually use it specifically in combos. But the actual moves of Rune Kachu, they're trash. They have gaps. They don't work correctly, and half the time they won't even trigger in the first place, like the counter. So Rune Kachu unfortunately did receive that fat nerf, and it's pretty sad because this is definitely one of the coolest bloodlines in the game. All right, so now for the actual tier list. Coming in 10th place is going to be Doom Shadow and or 6-Pack Naramaki. Now, this is actually the skin of Doom Shadow, which actually was the original Vengeance here. Vengeance is just basically a very new friendly combo extending bloodline. There's not really much else to say other than that. It's just a really, you know, it's just good for noobs. If you're not that great at PvP, this is a great pick up for you. And 6-Pack Naramaki is only going to be here for the second mode, and the reason why it's going to be so low compared to what it was before is unfortunately because a lot of the new modes coming out does what 6-Pack Naramaki mode does, but better. It has, most of them have buffed M1s, which is good about this, and a very high damage counter, which is what 6-Pack Naramaki was really good for. And all the moves of 6-Pack Naramaki have been nerfed. Alright, so coming in 9th place, it could be Shiro Glacier and Strange. Now, Shiro Glacier is mainly going to be here just because in general, it's just a pretty, you know, above average bloodline in general. I mean, it has pretty high damage abilities, it has pretty good stun abilities in general. I mean, like, it's just an okay bloodline, and I definitely think that the mode is really good, which is, you know, why it's going to be with Strange. The actual weapon spec of the mode is probably one of the better weapon specs in the game. I do think Strange weapon spec is very similar as well, so I definitely think the modes have a lot in common. I do think the Shiro Glacier's abilities are very similar to Strange's abilities as well, just, you know, basic high damage abilities that do have a bit of stun attached to them. Now, like I said, the other 9th place is going to be Strange here. Strange is going to be here honestly only for the mode. The C-spec is still a time stop C-spec that heals you to whatever you were before. The M1s are still buffed M1s, that just do a lot less damage than they used to. And then you do actually have the weapon spec of the mode, which is a pretty good, you know, M1 combo extending ability. Alright guys, so coming in 8th place is going to be Alfirama Shizen, which is only going to be here mainly for the third move. The third move of Alfirama is just a pretty good, you know, high pressure ability that does allow you to extend or start combos. The actual other abilities of Alfirama are just kind of mid in general. They're just like basic big AoE stun moves. The mode is another just big AoE, you know, a bunch of more big AoE stun moves. Alfirama is just a really good team fighting bloodline, but the actual mode drain on the mode make it very difficult to use in a lot of different scenarios. Now coming to 7th place is going to be Doku Tengoku, which is only going to be here for the block break, which is the first move, which is actually a pretty good ability, and the counter, which is a really good counter to Rei Karada, and it's just a really good counter in general. But as you guys can see, there is a knockback attached to this move, so that's what you have to be wary of when using the counter is the knockback, but it is still a really good counter. Now coming to 6th place is going to be Eastwood Karashi and Ragnar. Now Eastwood Karashi right here is going to be here mainly for the third ability, which is actually an iframe attack ability. That's kind of only going to be it. I mean, the first ability is quite good as well. It's just a pretty good long range combo extender. Now, like I said in a lot of my other videos, I do think Ragnar is a pretty good bloodline other than the mode. Now, Ragnar does have its ups and downs in general. As you guys can see, you know, the mode of it is honestly isn't that good. The main good abilities of Ragnar are going to be the first and third. The first one is a guard break stun ability that is quite good. Shiver Ragnar does stun for a lot longer, so I do recommend using that instead of this. And then you do actually have the Ragnar counter, which is obviously a really good counter. And then, you know, you have buffed M1s in the mode, so, you know, it is what it is. Now coming to 5th place is going to be Minakaze and Rei Karada. Now, the reason why these are going to be here, honestly, just for PvP alone, something you'll notice is that a lot of the bloodlines above this one are going to be good for more things than just PvP. Some of them will be good for PvP, but it will be more than just, you know, one or two things. But, you know, Minakaze here, the third ability is an absolutely amazing combo extender. That's the main thing of Minakaze that is quite good. I've had a lot of trouble fighting the, you know, Minakaze Baron mode in the past and Minakaze mode in the past, but the third ability is definitely the main good thing about Minakaze. And then the fat boy bloodline himself, the big meatball, big fat man bloodline, Rei Karada. Obviously, guys, the first ability is the good move of Rei Karada, and once this gets nerfed, Rei Karada overall will probably be a very mid bloodline, but the first move is just generally a really good ability. You can use it to counter other Rei Karada first moves. If they don't have a counter equipped, the only way to get out of this is by either flying away or using a, you know, a iframe attack, and the cooldown is quite low for how good it is. For the actual bloodline itself, it's kind of mid in general. You're kind of just going to be sticking to the first You'll be sticking to the first ability. Wow, that was a weird sneeze. Now coming to fourth place, it's going to be Shindo Life, just because it is really good for PvE content and is okay for PvP. So when it comes to PvE content, Shindo Life is just a really good bloodline because of the clones and high damage sunflower move. And for PvP content, the clone move is actually a counter, which is pretty good. And then you do actually have the weapon spec, which is an iframe mode drain ability, which is also pretty good. So it's a pretty good PvE bloodline and a pretty good PvP bloodline. Solid fourth place. Now coming to third place is going to be Snake Man. Now I do actually think Snake Man is a really fun bloodline to use. It has very high damage amounts. It has pretty good abilities. I mean, it's just a very fun bloodline. The actual mode does make the abilities do more damage. You know, you do actually have the throwable ability, which is a combo extending move stackable ability that does a lot of damage as well. The second, I do recommend staying away from the second and third ability of Snake Man. They are pretty okay. I mean, like the second one is a basic stunned combo extending ability. And then you actually have the third one, which is a long range block break, but you actually have to have pretty good range for that. So I definitely recommend sticking to the first ability in the mode of Snake Man. And the counter does do a lot of damage as well. Now coming to second place, it could be Indra Akuma. This one's going to be mainly here for the mode itself. It's a raised block mode that only takes 30 mode drain with buffed M1s. I mean, that's the main reason why it's here. The C-spec is actually a guard break, but you cannot use this on people that have a counter just because, you know, if they counter this, you're going to get hit because it doesn't actually give you iframes. So only use the C-spec on people that do not actually already have used the counter. The actual weapon spec is kind of useless. It drains too much mode to be worth using, so I'm not going to show you guys. That ability just did 110,000. You know what? I'll show you the weapon spec. The weapon spec drains too much mode to use, but it basically makes you immune to stuns and gives you damage reduction. Do not use this, guys. Stay away from it. The actual throwable of the mode is okay in general. I mean, like when you attack someone, it does a ragdoll stun to them with a bit of burn damage. The stun isn't long enough to be anything worth considering, but it actually is a, you know, mode counter, so it is okay overall. First move is a basic combo extender that does a bit of damage. The second move is a two-hand sign stun, basically old Bankai stun in my opinion. And, you know, the raised block of the mode is definitely the reason why it's going to be second place. By the way, guys, what is your favorite rare bloodline in Shindo Life? From the comments below, we'll be checking them out. Now coming to first place, it could be one of my new favorite bloodlines, Ashura Shizen. Now, Ashura Shizen is a very solid bloodline. The first ability is a pretty good combo extending ability. The second move is a block break stun that is a place lock, lasts quite a while and drains chi from them. The third move has a pretty sizable AoE to it, and it, you know, it does do a lot of damage, as you guys can see. But the main good thing about it is actually the mode, which is a 30 mode drain raised block ability that does allow you to, you know, avoid a lot of different attacks, even block breakers, because if someone's starting to charge a block breaker, you can just avoid it, even stuff like Ragnar and things like that. So it's a pretty good, you know, mode just for the raised block. The counter of the mode is also really good as well, which is actually a place lock counter, which is just the second move. So it's a second move, but as a counter. So it's a pretty good counter in general. Anyways, guys, that's for this video. If you enjoyed this video, remember to subscribe, guys. Bye-bye.